your men can have love for the truckie. Beautiful minds, but we love getting ugly. Risk takers with a clover, man, we love getting lucky. You run, we chase fire, I love when it ducks me. Tones go off, house watch, read the address out. 1075, get up off the magic couch. 500 gallons prepared for the baddest drought. Who else you want on the way when disaster's out? Can't even get a little bit rattled when you enter with exit apparel. Mayday, member down, they'll drag you. You won't get this from every Tom, Dick, and Harold, but here's a view from the top floor with Mickey Farrell.
Welcome back to another episode of The View from the Top Floor. Los Angeles Fire Department. Wow. I can't wrap my brain around really when you look at the photos and the videos come out of California, what's going on out there. That said, I caught that fire right when it came in. It came in around 10:15, 10:30 maybe. I threw it on probably around 11. So I put the scanner app on, buffed it out. I'll tell you, I was so impressed by the professionalism of the Los Angeles Fire Department. They had these guys on the radio. TAC Squad 3-3 to operations. I have 7 houses fully involved. We're going to move down 1 block and try to make a stop there. As cool and calm and collective as that. Remarkable. You know, as firefighters, we tend to think that we're better than we are at communicating, especially under stress. The incident command system pigeonholed through IFSTA and through the fire industry and kind of broad stroke the fire service into an incompetent way of talking, I feel, under real fireground stress. You can't have the same incident that's happening in California and then have a 1-bedroom apartment fire in New York City and have that the same standard in incident command. Now, granted, there's different levels. I understand that. But it's the same broad stroke terminology, and it doesn't work. Firefighters speak in statements. We have to remember this. Now, there's times where these statements can be a little more in-depth, like I spoke about with the OV going to the rear of a building, or whoever that firefighter is for you that goes opposite the fire. Before you take the windows, if you have a slight wind condition, maybe get on the radio and say, ladder 1 OV to ladder 1, I'm going to hold off on the video. We have a slight wind condition. Let me know when you get water on the fire. So that's the kind of communications as far as conversations we have as firefighters, but it's really no more than that. Officers have conversations with the chief in the street. You're painting the picture for what that chief needs to see in the moment. So he's standing in the street. He wants to know, and there's an internal clock in every officer's time ticking. It's the same clock ticking with the chief in his brain. But unfortunately, usually the chief's brain is ticking a little bit faster than the officer on the inside because the chief wants to know information. Sometimes we forget how long that takes to get into position in the fire apartment or the floor above and understand what condition you have and relay that back to the command staff. So that's a tempo within its own that needs to be worked out and it needs to be practiced. But when you have a good chief and a good officer and they've been working together a long time, there's a mutual understanding of really how long it takes. We get into these problems when we have junior command staff levels on the outside of the building trying to micromanage what's going on the inside. And those chief officers that haven't really had the experience maybe working in that type of building or that type of neighborhood or the experience of going to enough fires to realize what that internal clock really entails. The screamer. We all know a screamer on the fireground, and we know screaming is not good for this business. Many of you are probably thinking, well, what makes someone scream? In my experience, I've realized that a screamer is the guy that hasn't accepted the fact that we have no control of the situation. And when you accept the fact that you have no control of the situation, you, which in turn gain complete control that's under extreme discomfort, the fire floor and the floors above, high-level stress. When you accept that, this is when you're operating at your Zen efficiency, your optimum peak performance. This is where you can manage your breathing, lower your heart rate, think clearly, and be able to communicate with your command staff, with your members operating next to you or your members operating remotely from you. But company integrity comes from being able to manage your stress level. So that screamer, he's trying to gain that temporary control, trying to grasp it. And he's being very unsuccessful by screaming because the tempo of the fire is now skyrocketing. Because you have one screamer, even for a 1-bedroom fire, if you have one screamer, the tempo of the fire is drastically going to change. That chief in the street, his tempo is drastically going to change. That internal clock that he was focusing on, that he has calculated in, that is now pinned to the max, looking for answers. This is where we get in trouble because one person screams, the dominoes begin to fall the wrong way. People think the job's not getting done, when in reality, the job is getting done. A big part of communications on the fireground as well is listening. That's something that we don't necessarily train on or drill with or even teach our young firefighters in Pro school. Is listening is probably one of the best tools we have, if not the most important tool other than water on the fire. Listening is everything on this job, but we have to be able to manage our stress, to lower our heart rate, to listen clearly. So once that stress level maxes out, we cannot hear the details of that fire. Details being that when you're operating on the floor above and then you hear a loss of water, well, that's a detail that's very, very critical. This is a point where we have to be able to go to an area of refuge. Hopefully you took that off apartment for that area of refuge. And if not, if you are in the fire apartment, at least find a bedroom. You can close that door, isolate it until they correct the problem. This is why it's important that when you do have a loss of water, give the reason why. Engine company firemen are problem fixers. And if you give that problem and say, we don't have water for this reason, guys will fix that problem very quickly. But if you don't say why, no one's going to be able to help that problem in the moment. Circling back to the incident command, the IFSTA manual, and that broad stroke brush of communications that they want us to use on every fire, our brain tries to bridge that gap under stress. So that's where we get these filler words, be advised, at this time, not at this time. We all have used them at one point of our career, probably. I try hard not to use them. I just want to clarify a couple of things with that. This is your brain subconsciously trying to correct the conscious moment of realizing that you're under a high level of stress and you're forgetting what you read in the textbook and you're forgetting how professional that they want you to sound. But in reality, just having a conversation like this is the most professional form of firefighting you can do, just like they did in LA. I'm telling you, it was a conversation just like I'm having with you now. Nice, cool, calm, collective. They weren't talking sectors. They weren't talking divisions. I mean, I'm sure on the command level, on the major incident command staff level, that's a very real thing, but boots on the ground doesn't really translate to reality. The filler words is what we do to make us sound a little bit smarter. So when you say be advised, that's just a filler word of trying to bridge that gap. In reality, there's no reason for me to tell you that I'm going to advise you something. Just say it. Again, speak in statements. However, not at this time and at this time. Those are two that can be used, and I truly believe they can be used in a professional manner. But we have to realize we can't overuse them to bridge that gap. So if you're on the exposure building, you have fire in the cockloft of a fire building, you go to exposure B or exposure 2, whatever it is for you. You cut an inspection hole. A good report would be ladder 1, roof to command. I'm on exposure 2. I have an inspection hole. We have no fire in the cockloft at this time. So that's a good at this time transmission because now we can monitor those conditions. So that might be a tactically sound time to use that transmission, in my opinion. Again, just be wary of overusing some of those terminologies that our mind is subconsciously trying to use to bridge the gap of stress. All right, so that's all I have time for today's show. I apologize, a little pressed for time this week. We are moving to the new studio probably in 2 weeks or so. I'm still going to keep this satellite studio here in New York City. I'll be going back and forth between the big studio and the little studio and still keep doing my street talks. Again, guys, thanks for all the support. If you happen to be in the Mid-Atlantic region on January 18th, this coming Saturday, I'll be at the Maryland Chiefs Association training event, doing Fire Academy to the fire floor in the morning, and the afternoon session, I'm giving my lithium-ion battery class. So if you guys are there, come up and say hello. If you didn't know about it and you're in the area and you want to attend, reach out to me, and I will direct you in the right direction. All right, guys? Mickey Farrell, view from the top floor. I'll talk to you soon.